The music was still echoing in the grand Texas ranch hall, the laughter of guests mixing with the clinking of glasses, when my daughter looked at me with eyes that pierced straight through my heart. It was supposed to be her big day, the one where I sat proudly in the front row, watching her walk down the aisle like the angel I had raised. But instead she leaned close to me, her smile never fading for the crowd, and whispered words I'll never forget. "Mama, can you please take care of the kids? All of them." I thought she meant 2 or 3. Maybe a niece, maybe her friend's toddler throwing a tantrum. But within minutes, I was herded out of the hall, my heels sinking into the grass as one cousin after another began dropping off their children into my arms. 1, then 3, then 5. Until I was surrounded by 15 restless little bodies, screaming, crying, running wild under the Texas sun. My heart sank. I wasn't dressed for this. I wasn't here for this. I was her mother, not the hired help. But as the last bridesmaid shoved a diaper bag into my hands and sprinted back to the party, I stood frozen in shock, holding a baby on one hip while a group of kids tugged at my dress, begging for snacks and juice boxes. Inside, the music roared louder, and I could almost hear my daughter laughing with her new husband. I was missing it all. That was the first betrayal of the night. At first, I tried to tell myself it was temporary, that once the speeches started or the dances began, someone would come get me. But they didn't. The kids grew wilder, tossing cake into the grass, screaming at each other, running dangerously close to the road. I yelled for help, but no one heard me. The windows to the hall were shut tight, glowing with warm golden lights where the real celebration was happening. And I realized something that made my stomach twist. I had been pushed out, shoved away from the very heart of my daughter's wedding. I clenched my fists, fighting back tears. It wasn't just about missing the bouquet toss or the first dance. It was about being treated like I didn't matter. Like I was a burden, not her mother. I raised her with my own 2 hands, worked double shifts, stitched her dresses by candlelight when we couldn't pay the bills. And this was my reward? To babysit strangers' kids while my only daughter waltzed under chandeliers? I wanted to storm inside and scream, but then one of the kids, a little boy I barely knew, ran off toward the barn in the dark. My heart nearly stopped. I had no choice but to chase after him, dragging my dress through dirt and cow manure, hearing the laughter of the wedding faint in the distance. I caught him before he could climb onto a broken tractor, but when I turned back I saw something that froze my blood. Through the barn's half-open door, I spotted my daughter. She wasn't alone. She was standing close, too close to a man who wasn't her husband. Her hand was on his chest. His face leaned near hers. And though I couldn't hear their words over the music, I knew the language of betrayal when I saw it. My knees nearly buckled. Did she marry this man she barely knew, while still holding on to another? Or was this worse? Was she already breaking her vows on the very night she swore them? I backed away, clutching the boy's hand tightly, my chest heaving with anger and disbelief. For a moment I wanted to rush in, confront her, drag her out by the arm. But the little ones were waiting, and I couldn't leave them unsupervised. They were my leash, my prison. So I walked back, trembling, every step heavier than the last. Inside I could still hear the cheers, the music swelling as if the whole world was celebrating love and loyalty. But I had just seen something rotten beneath the glittering lights. And as I sat back down with the screaming children, wiping dirt off my dress, something inside me shifted. A thought I had never allowed before burned hot in my chest. If she thought she could humiliate me, use me, and betray me on the same night, she had no idea what kind of mother she truly had. But what I didn't know yet was that this was just the first crack in a night that would shatter everything I thought I knew about my daughter and myself. Because only an hour later, when the speeches began, the biggest betrayal of all was waiting for me inside that hall. Was still sitting outside, surrounded by crumbs, spilled juice, and sticky little hands pulling at my dress, when I heard the DJ announce in a booming voice, "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the bride's mother for a few words." My blood froze. My name echoed inside that glowing hall, and yet I was not there. Nobody came to get me. Nobody thought to check if I was missing. Instead, I could hear the awkward pause, the shuffle of feet, and then laughter, polite, forced laughter filling the silence. I pushed the children toward the grass, my chest pounding. I couldn't take it anymore. I wasn't going to let my name be used like some prop while I was hidden away like an embarrassment. I stormed toward the hall, dragging mud-stained shoes across the floor as I pushed the doors open. The room fell silent for a brief second, hundreds of eyes turning toward me. My hair was frizzed, my dress was wrinkled. A juice stain smeared across the satin. I looked like a woman who had been dragged through hell. And in a way I had. On stage, my daughter stood, hand in hand with her new husband. She smiled, but it was tight, almost annoyed. She leaned toward the microphone and said, "Sorry, everyone. My mom must be busy with the kids." The words cut deeper than any knife. Busy with the kids. That was how she explained my absence to her new family, her friends, to the entire town. Like I was some hired nanny. Not the woman who had given her life. Not the mother who had poured every ounce of herself into raising her. The crowd chuckled and she moved on, turning the microphone toward her father-in-law. My chance, my rightful place, had been stolen. And yet, what shook me even more was the way she looked at me from across the hall. Not with guilt. Not with regret. But with cold dismissal, as if to say, "Stay in your place." Something inside me broke. I turned to leave, but just as I reached the back doors, I heard whispers behind me. Two bridesmaids, my daughter's closest friends, were laughing softly. One of them said, "Can you believe she made her mom do that? At least it keeps her out of the pictures." The other one replied, "Yeah, she told me she didn't want her mom's old-fashioned look ruining her wedding album." My knees went weak. My daughter had planned this. Not a mistake. Not a last-minute accident. She wanted me out. She didn't want me in her photos, in her memories, in her perfect curated life. The weight of years of sacrifices came crashing down on me. Every meal I had skipped to make sure she had enough. Every night I stayed up sewing her dresses. Every time I defended her when others judged. And now, on the most important night of her life, she erased me. I stumbled back outside, choking on my own breath, the children swarming around me again. My vision blurred with tears, but my rage burned hotter than ever. If she wanted me invisible, she had underestimated just how visible I could make myself. But before I could even form a plan, chaos erupted among the kids. Two boys began fighting over a toy truck, screaming and shoving until one of them fell back onto the table stacked with leftover food. Plates shattered, cake splattered onto the ground, and within seconds, the children were screaming like wild animals. I tried to calm them, but the noise carried straight into the hall. The music cut. The laughter dimmed. And then the doors burst open. Guests spilled out, eyes wide, whispering as they took in the scene, me disheveled, surrounded by screaming kids, broken dishes at my feet. And in the center of it all, my daughter. Her face twisted in fury, her cheeks red with embarrassment. She marched toward me, her dress sparkling under the lights, her husband trailing awkwardly behind. She hissed through clenched teeth, "Mama, what are you doing? You're ruining everything. Ruining everything." The words rang in my ears like a cruel echo. And that's when something snapped inside me. I straightened my back, wiped my tears, and said loud enough for every guest to hear, "No. You ruined everything when you made me the babysitter at my own daughter's wedding." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Her husband shifted uncomfortably, clearly blindsided. My daughter's eyes burned with hatred, but before she could reply, an older woman stepped forward, her husband's mother. She crossed her arms, staring my daughter down. "Is this true?" she asked. The silence that followed was unbearable. My daughter stuttered, trying to laugh it off, but her mother-in-law's face hardened. And in that instant I knew. This night wasn't just falling apart for me. It was about to unravel for her too. But I didn't know yet just how dark the unraveling would get. Because a secret was about to spill that none of us were ready for. The crowd waited in heavy silence, the Texas night buzzing with cicadas in the distance. My daughter's smile faltered as her new mother-in-law kept staring, arms crossed, demanding an answer. My daughter tried to laugh it off, her voice trembling. "Oh, it was just a joke, we thought Mama would be good with the kids." But the older woman didn't laugh. She leaned in closer, her voice sharp as broken glass. "You told me your mother didn't want to be part of the pictures. You told me she was too shy. That's why we didn't include her in the family portraits earlier." My breath caught. Portraits? Family portraits? They had already been taken without me. The realization hit me like a punch to the chest. While I was out there wiping noses and chasing toddlers through the dirt, my own daughter had been smiling for cameras, capturing forever a version of her life where I simply did not exist. I staggered back, bile rising in my throat. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to tear down the perfect white roses hanging above the archway. But before I could, her mother-in-law turned to the guests and said words that cracked the entire wedding wide open. If she can lie about her own mother, what else has she been lying about? The air shifted. Gasps spread like wildfire. Eyes turned toward my daughter, not with admiration now, but suspicion. Her husband stiffened, his grip on her hand loosening. And then, like fate itself had been waiting for this moment, the man I had seen earlier in the barn stepped out of the shadows. The same man whose face had hovered dangerously close to hers, whose presence I couldn't forget. He walked into the circle of light, his shirt half untucked, his eyes bloodshot with drink. The guests parted like water as he stumbled forward. And then he said it loud enough for everyone to hear. "So you're just going to pretend we don't exist? That last night meant nothing?" The hall exploded into chaos. Gasps, shouts, people whispering frantically. My daughter's face drained of color, her lips trembling. Her husband's hand slipped entirely from hers as he turned to her with horror in his eyes. "What is he talking about?" he demanded. She stuttered, reaching out, but the man kept going, slurring his words with bitter anger. "You said you weren't sure about marrying him, that you still loved me. You begged me not to come tonight, but I couldn't just sit at home while you promised yourself to someone else." Every word was a dagger, each one carving deeper into the fragile image of her perfect wedding. Her husband's face twisted, his jaw clenching as he stepped away from her. His mother shook her head in disgust. Guests covered their mouths, some even grabbing their phones, already recording the disaster unfolding before them. And I stood frozen, torn between devastation and a dark, shameful flicker of satisfaction. Because while this scene shattered my daughter's life, part of me whispered that she deserved it, for what she had done to me, for erasing me, for betraying me. But that flicker didn't last long, because the man didn't stop. He pulled something from his pocket, a small black velvet box. He opened it, revealing a diamond ring. Gasps spread again, sharper this time. "You told me this should have been mine to give you," he said. "You said you loved me. So why are you standing here with him?" My daughter's knees nearly buckled. She shook her head desperately, tears streaming down her face. "Stop, please stop," she begged. Her husband stared at the ring, then at her. His face hardened. "Is it true?" The silence that followed was unbearable. My daughter couldn't answer. Her sobs filled the night, but no denial came. No defense. Nothing. And then her husband ripped off his wedding band, throwing it onto the ground. The sound of metal clattering against the floor echoed louder than the music ever had. Gasps. Screams. The entire wedding dissolved into chaos. Guests rushed for the exits. Chairs toppled. The music cut off completely. But in the middle of it all, my daughter collapsed to her knees, wailing like a child. And all eyes turned to me, as if I was supposed to fix this, as if somehow the mother could sweep up the ashes of a marriage that had burned before it even began. I looked down at her, broken and desperate. And for the first time in my life, I felt no urge to save her. But just as I turned to walk away, her husband's mother stopped me with a hand on my arm. Her voice was low, trembling. "There's something you need to know. Something about your daughter. Something I should have told you before tonight." Her eyes glistened with a secret so heavy, I felt my own stomach twist with dread. And when she finally whispered the words into my ear, my knees went weak. Because the truth she revealed didn't just explain my daughter's betrayal. It shattered everything I thought I knew about her entire life. Her mother-in-law's lips trembled as she leaned closer, almost afraid to say it aloud. "Your daughter came to us months ago. She begged us to keep a secret from you. She said you weren't her real mother." The ground seemed to tilt beneath me. My ears rang. My breath caught like I had been struck. Not her real mother? I stumbled back, my hands shaking violently. For a moment I thought I had misheard, that maybe the chaos had distorted her words. But her eyes were too clear, too certain, too pitiful. She went on, her voice cracking. "She told us she was adopted. That she didn't want you to embarrass her in front of our family. She said you clung to her too tightly because you were trying to hide the truth." My world caved in. My daughter, my baby, was not mine? I wanted to scream that it was a lie, that she had been placed in my arms the day she was born, that I had carried her through fevers, nightmares, heartbreaks, and school plays. I wanted to deny it with every bone in my body. But then across the crowd I saw her face. She wasn't shocked. She wasn't confused. She wasn't even denying it. She was staring at me, wide-eyed, pale, trembling like a child caught in a web of her own lies. And in that silence the truth cracked open between us. I had never adopted her. She had never been anyone else's child. But she had told them that story, spun that lie, to distance herself from me, to carve me out of her perfect new life like I was an ugly scar. She had erased me not only from her wedding but from her very bloodline. The betrayal was too vast to measure. Gasps rippled through the guests. Her husband's family looked horrified, whispering frantically. Her husband himself turned away from her, shaking his head as if he didn't even know the woman standing in front of him anymore. My daughter fell to her knees again, sobbing. "Mama, please, I didn't mean for it to go this far. I just wanted them to respect me. I thought if they knew how poor we were, how hard you worked, they wouldn't accept me. I wanted a better life." Her words stabbed at me, each one a blade twisted deeper. She wasn't ashamed of who she was ashamed of me. The crowd waited for me to answer, to comfort her, to forgive her, to rescue her from the storm she had created. But I couldn't. Not this time. I stepped closer, my voice trembling but clear, carrying through the wreckage of what had once been her wedding night. "You say you wanted a better life. But you forgot the hands that built the life you had. You forgot the woman who bled, starved, and fought for you. You forgot your mother." Her sobs grew louder, echoing through the night. But I didn't bend. Instead, I turned to her husband, who stood pale and broken, clutching the back of a chair as if it were the only thing keeping him standing. "You deserve to know the truth," I told him. "She will not stop lying. And I cannot make her choose honesty. That is for you to decide." And with that I walked away. The guests parted in silence as I passed, their eyes burning into me. Behind me I could still hear her wailing, her voice cracking as she screamed after me. "Mama! Mama, please don't leave me." But I didn't look back. For once in my life I chose myself. When I stepped into the cool Texas night, the stars above seemed sharper, colder. I realized then that the wedding had ended long before the vows. It had ended the moment my daughter chose pride over love, lies over truth, shame over gratitude. I didn't stop walking until the music and the cries were nothing but faint echoes. And though my heart was shattered, though I may never fully heal from the wound she carved into me, one thing burned clear in my chest. Sometimes the greatest act of love a mother can give is to finally stop saving the child who refuses to be saved. That night, under the endless Texas sky, I swore to myself, I would no longer live in the shadow of someone else's shame. I was a mother. I was a survivor. And if my daughter wanted me invisible, then she would learn the pain of truly losing me. Because this time I wasn't coming back.